Well, Good Shepherd, no need to raise your hands, but how many of you get a little anxious when it comes to sitting next to a stranger? Whether you're the one feeling like an insider or an outsider, I think this feeling of butterflies in our stomach can be a common trait among everybody. And it's not reserved for a single time or space, whether it's in our fellowship hall at church, the lunchroom at middle school, your kid's first tournament, or simply waiting to RSVP yes or no until you know if people you actually like are going to be at the event. I think we've all been there. It's human nature. But I want you to hear this today. It's not God's nature. In fact, God's nature is to create space for all to belong. If nothing can separate us from God's love, that means that God is in the business of building a bigger table, or at least squeezing in to make room for as many people as possible. Now, I know that can feel like a big ask circumstantially. Like a crowded cafe in New York City, expect to be uncomfortable at times. But I want you to be comforted by the reality that you have a spot at the table, especially here at church. Now, when grabbing a seat, you might find yourself sitting next to someone that you don't recognize. More so, you might find yourself sitting next to someone that you do recognize, and this can come with a variety of responses, some positive, and if we're honest with ourselves, some negative. And this isn't a new thing. In fact, Jesus Christ faced similar dilemmas, as did the religious leaders and people of his day, who actually challenged his followers and condemned Christ himself for the people that he was willing to sit with, to break bread with. Now, in the message take of our preaching text, we're told that Jesus went out and he saw a man named Levi who was at his job collecting taxes. And Jesus approached him and said, "Come along with me." And we're told that he did. He walked away from everything and went with him. We're told that Levi gave a large dinner at his home for Jesus. Everybody was there. Taxmen and other disreputable characters were guests at Jesus' dinner table there. And the Pharisees and their religion scholars, they came to his disciples greatly offended. They said, "What is he doing eating and drinking with misfits and sinners?" Now, Jesus heard about this, as Jesus does, and he spoke up. "Who needs a doctor, the healthy or the sick? I'm here inviting outsiders, not insiders, an invitation to a changed life, changed inside and out." Now, Jesus' response in this gospel reading has defined how I look at the world around me and those who inhabit it. It's challenged me to reform the ways that I view the church and what it means to be the church in a world that God loves. A changed life inside and out can come in a variety of ways, and I believe in taking as many avenues short of sinning to make sure that people can experience the life-changing gospel just as they are. One of the reasons I enjoy doing events outside our building is because we get to meet people exactly where they're at. One of these events I enjoy doing is Beer and Hymns. And it's an opportunity for us to be a light in the community. By going to places like a local pub where we're able to be the church outside these walls. And in turn, we're able to break down the walls that divide the secular and the sacred. Not in a sinful way, but in a way reminiscent of our church's namesake, Martin Luther, some 500 plus years ago. And it's not about being edgy, but being faithful to our call to love God and love each other, meeting people where they're at, the settled and the sojourners, the faithful and the faithless, the old and the young, and everybody in between. When we say that we want to be a church that exists so that all may know the Good Shepherd Jesus, it means that we mean it. And we're willing to break down the divide in doing so. I don't want to be a church that simply waits for people to come to us. We want to be for Fargo Moorhead. We want to meet them where they're at. And now I know that this can be messy at times. Addiction is real. Loneliness is real. And the need for connection is at an all-time high. But as Pastor Mary said, we're a gathered people with different backgrounds and ideas, different needs, different hopes and dreams. And what brings us together isn't those things, but instead the desire to be rooted in this community of faith, to be rooted in the gospel. As a church, this is our focus, and this is what you are invited to do as well. To be the church, to meet people where they're at while living out who God created you to be. Even people in a bar. If this sounds crazy to you, I'm not surprised. People have thought many things were crazy throughout the scriptures too. And from the religious leader's perspective, Levi, who we heard about in our gospel reading today, he was somebody that wasn't worthy of being in the presence of Jesus because of things that he had done. He was a sinner. His occupation wasn't well thought of. He didn't adhere to all the teachings of the time. And these people were judgmental about it. They let Jesus and his disciples know that they did not approve. But thankfully, Jesus sees things differently. What we have here in this scenario are gathered people who greatly need the grace of God. Dinner with Jesus, a seat at the table, it led him to forgiveness through Jesus and a way forward with him. Because of the invite from Jesus to come and follow him. Because of the willingness of Jesus to simply be with them in the midst of a low point. Levi left his old ways behind and found a new chapter in the story. In fact, now christened as Matthew. Yes, that Matthew. And if the religious leaders of the time had had their way, transformation never would have happened. Because you see, Levi wasn't one of them. He was a sinner and a sojourner of sorts, not native to the religious expectation of the time. And he found new life because Jesus went outside the synagogue walls. We're all saints and sinners in some ways. We're all sojourners. Now, the Hebrew term for sojourn, ger, and its translation conveys the basic idea that a person finds themselves within a community and place that they're not native to. It's not primarily their own. And they depend on the welcome of others to merely survive, let alone thrive. We at Good Shepherd are a church with a physical location, but a mission that extends beyond these walls. When guests join us for worship or any number of programs or special events here that we offer weekly, there are sojourners among us. Good Shepherd, our call isn't to be a country club. It's a place where everybody can gather as they are and encounter the good news while connecting with God and each other. Living in a world that contains judgment can be painful, especially in a time of need. I believe that Levi is a lot like us. We are who we are. And we all have the desire to find that safe place to experience grace and acceptance, hope, and true love. I'm not sure if he ever wondered if a place like that existed, but once he was able to spend time with Jesus, it changed him, it transformed him. I know that there are people who have yearned for that, who have wondered about where they can find this hope. Thankfully, there's a few places where people can experience those desires. One place I have seen it take place is beer and hymns. The other place is Bible camp. Now, much the same, at camp, people come with all sorts of feelings, nerves and doubts, joys and optimism, and even baggage. They come from various faith backgrounds and traditions, sometimes with none at all. Just a simple invite from someone that they trust. It's a place where they can experience life with their friends and maybe church staff and counselors, and even these complete strangers that end up becoming a close friend by the end of the week. It's a place where you can see the stars, take a deep breath, sing songs really loud, sometimes in key. Sometimes not so much. It's a place where kids can be kids. It's a place where you can come as you are, but be transformed. It's a place to experience Jesus and a place to leave changed. In Bible studies and worship and devos and one-on-ones, we continue to see through conversation and presence, change, growth. Kids being able to be honest, come as they are with their struggles from home and school, and not just leave them behind, but lay them at the feet of Jesus. And this is a freeing feeling for people of all ages. Because trust me, I've been in that role. At camp, the churched and the unchurched have a spot at the table just as they are, and Jesus meets them there. Now, I also worked at Bible camps for 3 summers, and it was an amazing experience for me in a supporting role, giving back to those younger than me what I experienced as I was going through a tug of war of faith and life. And the support that I received from those that also took that leap of faith, a similar stage in life. It allowed me to be reminded that God loved me as I was. And God began to pour into my life, imperfections and all, and allowed me to step into that call into ministry, as unexpected as that was. Because it was through places like camp, as a camper and a counselor, where I felt less like a sojourner and more like a member of the family, loved and rooted. Finally, I had a sense of belonging. Finally, I felt like my voice was heard. Finally, I felt like I mattered as a person of faith. And it's weird because I thought that camp was the only place where I could act like this or feel like this. That when I came home, for some reason, it had to be a different feeling and experience. That this was the only place where I could truly experience grace and feel the joy of Jesus and be confident in my faith. But I was wrong. There's one other place that can be like this: church. The church is a place where we can come with these same questions, these same struggles, these same praises, and expect the same interaction with Jesus. In an intergenerational setting filled with people who have had different life experiences, we're all coming into this space weekly with different baggage and needs, yet we all know that we are welcome at the table. And we know that this world isn't perfect, and at times we're unfairly judged based on our age or our struggles or our beliefs or our appearance. As humans, we're going to make our share of mistakes. Sometimes we find ourselves playing the role of Levi, sometimes the religious leader. But Good Shepherd, today, wherever you're at in your journey, as you come into this space, know that we can persevere, keeping in mind the promises that Jesus gave on the cross. The promises that we would always be covered in grace. The promises that he'll never leave our side. The promises that we will always be welcomed at his table. This was good news for people like Levi and his friends. It's good news for those that enjoy coming to church at the bar and those that come for other reasons but found themselves in the midst of revival. It's good news for the campers who said yes to some time at camp and the counselors who did too. It's good news for me, and it's good news for you. Good Shepherd, this church exists to be the place where we can worship and grow in faith and be surrounded by a caring community of the faithful and the not so sure. It's a place made up of people who are on the same journey through life as we all are, living into the love that Jesus has for us and doing our best to share it with others. And it can be challenging. But what keeps me going is Jesus' response to Levi and to the religious leaders. An invitation to a changed life, changed inside and out. And today, church, I'm inviting the insiders and the outsiders to come to the table and taste and see that the Lord is good.